Alright folks, we're going to go ahead and take some notes on metric mass today. I'd like you to go ahead and set up your notebook here on a new clean right hand page. Go ahead and title this Mass Notes, and we can also put in the date. Today's the 13th. And right below that I would also like you to include two spaces just like we did yesterday. These ones are going to be numbered 3 and 4. And then you can go ahead and also include this blank chart with the word definition. One space over here for us to put our metric units, space in the middle for some examples, and space over here for our tools. Now you can go ahead and pause the video so that you have enough time to finish completing your notebook page here. I'm going to go on to the next part. Alright, on the page that we just completed, I would like you to take a look at this metric mass example and see if you can read the number and write down what you think this is showing. Don't forget to include the units that you think you should put on it. Alright, now again, you can pause that if you need to. I'm going to move on. Number 4, I would like you to also try to write down this metric mass example with units. Okay, let's take a look at them here. Now, if you were looking at the first example and you noticed that there are 3 different arrows pointing at numbers. You notice the largest number here says 100. You also have an arrow pointing at a 30, and we have an arrow pointing somewhere between 3 and 4, and you notice that it's about 1, 2, 3 small lines past the 3. So for number 3, if you came up with 133.3, oops, that's too many 3's, 0.3 grams, you were exactly right. Okay, now on number 4 it says there is 150, and then the small arrow is between 0 and 1, so we don't have a full number there. So we're going to end up with 150.5 grams. And there we go. Good. Let's take a look at the notes for this part then. In the chart that you completed, let's talk about mass. When we think about mass, we often use the words heavy or light to define that. But if we're thinking in terms of really what mass means in the metric system, we can define it as how much stuff an object is made of. Now if you remember back in science class, you know that stuff, in quotes, really means atoms and molecules. Okay, but we're going to talk about how much stuff something is made of. Okay, and we also need to know that mass is different from weight. Okay, mass is different from weight. If you think about an astronaut, for example, when an astronaut goes into outer space or onto the moon, for example, we know that their weight changes because of the lack of gravity or the difference in gravity. However, the stuff that that astronaut is made of never goes away. He is still made of bones and skin and blood and hair and cells and all of those things. It doesn't go anywhere. It's just that the gravity is different. So weight depends on gravity. Mass never changes. Okay, let's look at some of the units that we use in metric mass. We talked yesterday with distance about the idea of a base unit. In mass, we're going to use the base unit of grams, and we show that with the little letter G. When we measure tiny things, we can use milligrams, mg, And when we measure large things, we can use kilograms, kg. Alright, some examples of things we could measure using those units. If we were going to do a little bit of baking at home, maybe we would measure a pinch of salt. And if we tried to find the mass of that, we could use milligrams. A paper clip might be just a little bit heavier, and maybe we could use grams to measure it. And if we wanted to measure something heavier, like a science textbook for example, we could use kilograms. Alright, and the last part over here, two of the tools that we use to measure metric mass are a balance and a scale. Now we're going to practice using a balance today, and maybe later on in the future you'll get more practice using scales. Alright, after this we'll begin the lab.